Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock, and today I'm joined by Katy Moss. Katy is the Managing Director of Trent Refractories. Trent Refractories are a customer-focused UK-based manufacturer and supplier of bespoke refractory products and solutions, supplying UK and global markets. Service is at the heart of everything they do. Managing a successful manufacturing business built on firm foundations, which has been trading for over 30 years at one of the hearts of British steelmaking, working at making changes through creating new systems and working practices in order to work towards bigger and better things. They are flying the flag for British manufacturing with fluid thinking and solid results. Welcome, Katy. It's lovely to meet you.
Hi, Kirsty. Nice to meet you too.
So let's start with the basics. What are refractory products? How are they made? What are they used for?
So, refractory products, well, not many people know what they are or that they even exist, but they are material resistant products that resistant to decomposition by heat, pressure, or chemical attack. So they're typically used in processes that involve heat. So that can be steel making, glass making, incineration, those kinds of things. But any product that we touch in our day-to-day lives, pretty much to get it where it is, it has seen heat at some point. And if it's seen heat, it's seen a refractory. So it is in everything that we live and work with.
So when you say heat, I'm assuming you're talking about huge temperatures. When you talk about
Uh,
forges and steel making,
well,
your products have to really withstand some high temperatures.
yes, they do. Yeah, they can go to sort of upwards of about 1800 degrees at times. But even, the varying degrees in temperature, if you think about civil concrete, for example, and that sort of melts around like 300, anything more than that needs to have a level of refractory resistance to it. So you can get very low temperature, or when I say very low temperatures, sort of 600 degrees, all the way up to sort of 1800, and in some cases 2000. So lots and lots of temperature variations along the way, doing very, very different things and different processes.
So you're completely the backbone of the manufacturing industry. I'm from the metals industry, and you know, everything we do is integral to life today. Like you said just now, everything we touch will have been involved in some sort of refractory process. Everything we touch has been involved in the metals industry. Even if you eat a sandwich, it'll have been made in stainless steel food plant or a kitchen even. It often feels like that nobody knows we exist. Is that more so for yourselves?
Yes, I think there's an element where there's the foundation industries, which is sort of your glass, cement, steel, chemicals, those types of products. But refractories is a word that is not in common use, so people understand steel exists because we touch it. We have lots of things made from it. They see it. And even taking on board what you're saying about people not really knowing what's behind that, they absolutely don't. But to even contemplate what a refractory is, it's just not something that falls within the repertoire of what we do. So yeah, it's sort of my sort of quest, if you like, is to try and bring that more to the forefront of people's minds, and that actually these products are sort of very important in the manufacturing of everything, and they need to be recognised for that and what their importance is.
Completely, because you're not going to get the glass or the steel or anything without the prior refractory process, I assume.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So the refractories have got to be in there. They've got to withstand the process, otherwise they don't make the quality of the product at the end. And if and from a safety perspective as well, if you're melting steel, you've got to protect the people who are making that steel, who are stood underneath that ladle. from that molten metal coming out of the pot. So that is sort of there's a huge safety implication there, and depending on what chemicals are involved in the product, that can also, if it's not right, it can lead to contamination of the process. So there's a there's a lot more to it than it just being heat resistant concrete.
It's it sounds absolutely fascinating that the variables that you'll work with, depending on, in layman's terms, what's being melted,
Yes.
because you're talking about different heat temperatures, different products, different chemicals, avoiding cross contamination, health and safety, and all of that. It's not going to be something you're going to learn overnight. It sounds incredibly technical.
It is, and thankfully, um, because of sort of the history of me coming into the company, thankfully I don't necessarily need to know it all. I have a basic understanding, but I have my technical people who I've employed to understand those elements. But it's really, really important that we maintain that technical knowledge here in the UK and that we put back for tomorrow as well, because it is so important to our everyday lives that we mustn't lose that capability in our repertoire, if you like.
I think that's really important. I mean, the UK has lost a lot of skills, particularly in steelmaking, by closing plants, and we do need to make sure that our technical knowledge is advanced, ongoing, and we're developing the next generation. You mentioned you don't need to sort of know it all. And I was doing my stalking on you.
It's good.
Your early career was in banking and finance for quite a few years.
Hmm.
Trent Refractories was set up by your father, and sadly he passed away in 2011. And you got rid of your first career and came in to take over the business.
I did.
Um, was that a difficult decision? Obviously, at the time you were going through um, a really sad and grief-stricken process personally, but to sort of give up everything you'd worked for and come in to do that, was it a hard decision?
Yes, it was. It was incredibly hard. I had at that point I felt like I'd come to the end of my banking career. I'd taken on a role working for the local authority. I just had a dream role created for me. They'd just got government funding to try out a new type of role to basically drive down costs in schools and procure smartly. So I was very, very excited about tackling that because it was something that I was quite strong at, and I'm quite passionate about saving the public money. So I was really, really looking forward to getting my teeth into that role. And just at the point of taking on the job, that was when my father passed away. And whilst it wasn't a surprise that he was going to pass away, I was left in charge as the executor. So I was basically there to facilitate the sale of the company. Um, and it became apparent very, very quickly that this company needed steering, it needed direction. I couldn't I couldn't do what needed to be done in just sort of one day a week. It needed more than that. So they were very kind to me at my new role, and they said, take some unpaid leave. They gave me 6 months to kind of get things sorted out. Uh, and during that time, well, it just wasn't enough. Um, and I had to take the decision to basically say, I'm really sorry, I can't undertake this role. Um, it broke my heart, but at the same time, giving up on giving up on what my father had built and the hardships that he'd endured over the 20 years of starting that business himself seemed it seemed like a purpose I had to do to serve his memory, and I think that actually helped me work through the grief at the time. So fighting to keep it going, fighting, to make sure that the customers knew that it was business as usual. The suppliers knew it was business as usual, that I understood it enough to know what was good and bad, a good month and a bad month, settling the staff down to feel that they were that the jobs weren't at risk because, my father had been quite vocal. We're going to be selling the business. If it doesn't get sold, it's probably going to close. There was a lot of emotion in the team at that time, and angst, and that needed to be put to bed. So that period of time, well, it changed me fundamentally, and I've sort of got, there's old things that I look back at and I can hear, there's like recordings, if you like, of me in a room, and 29 years old, and I'm sort of finding my feet. And now when I look back, it's like, gosh, I was such a child, really, in a lot of ways. I was so naive, and how seeing the business evolve over the last decade, or more than a decade now, it's how I've changed as a person as a result, and what the industry's done to me. It's staggering when I look back at the person who walked through that door in 2011. So yeah, it just felt like the right thing to do, but it certainly wasn't the easy road.
No, it's in that sort of situation, you're a rock and a hard place, aren't you? Whichever decision you make, there's going to be a loser, whether it's your dreams of your brand new role or your father's legacy. Um, and whatever decision you make has to be the right decision. It might not feel it at the time, but you have to work through it that it is the right decision. Um, your skills from your previous careers, I imagine a lot on the finance side were transferable, looking at P&Ls, balance sheets, margins, etc. Were there any other skills that you feel you brought with you into Trent that made you the managing director you are today?
So I think, well, when I used to work for HSBC Bank, early days as a management trainee, they had an excellent training program for customer service. And at the time, you don't, because you've only ever seen that one place, you take that for granted to a certain extent. But it was absolutely fantastic in terms of how to speak to people, how to listen, understand, and deliver their needs, what's important in that. And then, having worked in the bank for such a long period of time, you are seeing so many different businesses on a day-to-day basis, um, whether it's over the counter or sat down face to face, listening to their problems, um, just yeah, just sort of seeing the profiles of those businesses and what they look like, what's normal, what's not, and people in general, about what is and isn't normal in society. You get such a breadth of financial knowledge of what's going on, but it's just normal in that setting. So you kind of then become pigeonholed into thinking, well, all I know is banking. I can't do anything else. Why is this transferable? But when I stepped in to here, I would look at like a process, and well, why are we doing that? Why is there not a check and balance in place to make sure that we don't mess that up? We need to put a process in here to make sure that we don't make that mistake again. And it hadn't occurred to anybody in the business that we would do that. We would just carry on as we did. We'd continue to make the same mistakes. It's, all of those things. So adhering to process, the importance of process, and how that can actually ultimately add to the bottom line was a huge thing, because the bank was so process driven. And also then how to treat people. When I first came in, being a small business, my dad understood service 100%. He was a people person. He knew, he'd go and sit and talk to people and chat for an afternoon, and because people need to be listened to. But a lot of the team didn't have those skills. So if, let's say, there was a complaint, they'd sort of, quite often they'd back the complaint and almost make it about the customer. And it's like the customer doesn't want to hear that you are blaming them. The customer wants you to acknowledge what they're saying, take it on board, look at what we do, and then actually come back with a response. And if it is our fault, own up to it and do something about it and make it right. Because we all have problems, we all make mistakes, but it's how you deal with those mistakes and how you treat people that is what sets you apart, and whether or not they actually come back and give you another chance. And that was a big thing for people to take on board as well. So yeah, quite a few transferable skills, but actually they were quite major in terms of the culture of the business
I
and what
think
needed to
it's
change.
the integrity of the company from the MD down to um, the anybody else in the team. That comes from culture, and it has to be embedded. And how you respond to a complaint is really important.
Mm.
I remember probably about 30 years ago, and someone in our commercial team answered the phone, and the customer said, "You've polished this wrong." And that person said, "I didn't polish it." And I was like, "Oh, no."
Yeah.
You as an individual may not have, but if we as a company have, that shouldn't be your default answer. Your default answer needs to be, "I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me have the details. I'll look into it and come straight back to you." Um,
Because
you
we have polished it
yeah,
incorrectly.
yeah,
And yeah, it's we're a collective team, so
exactly.
own the problem,
Yeah.
and then yeah. So
It's one of those things that, as you say, it's everyone's going to make a mistake. You're going to get something wrong. I'm going to get something wrong. It's how you put it right. That's the important bit. Um, Going
and
back to
don't
something
lie.
oh,
Don't
never
lie.
lie.
It's like,
No,
do not lie. If you
no.
have, because you will get caught.
Yeah.
I am a terrible liar. So I
I'm
know if
actually
I
really
ever
quite
tell
good at
one,
it.
I'm just, it's out, it's out. So I just don't lie. It's not a thing because I won't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
away with it.
The best thing to do is just to ring somebody up. And we say, if you've got to give someone bad news, pick up the phone.
Mm.
You can send them an email to confirm it, but pick up the phone. And the amount of times I've gone, that I'm not even going to try to spin this. We've done this. I'm sorry. I
Hmm.
Shall we do this to put it right? And just it's just the easiest way, because
Yeah.
otherwise you just make yourself look like an idiot.
Hmm.
So
Yep, you do. You do.
it's you were talking earlier about keeping knowledge and everything in the UK for the next generation. Um, and part of that, you're heavily involved with um, Made in Britain. You're constantly promoting manufacturing and engineering. Um, how do you see the refractory industry evolving or expanding or growing within the UK? Because obviously you've got global clients. Do you see growth more outside the UK than in the UK?
Yes, it's we have lost pretty much all of our industry for refractories, sadly. In Somebody once told me that in the Rotherham and Sheffield area alone, in the 1980s, there was 300 refractory companies,
Wow.
and we've lost them. We are sort of one of probably five in the local area now, who've stood the test of time, and and actually that has dwindled over the last 5 or 6 years as well. So the big competitors, they've left the UK. Um, they've decided not to invest in the UK any further. So the ones that had the training schemes, the ones that brought in the graduates, and brought them on, who I now benefit from that because they're my technical people, they have gone, and the market in the UK has shrunk because I don't know, let's say a leading tonic manufacturer has now also decided to source their glass bottles from Turkey and not from the UK. So that's not going to help. All these things where we're buying things from abroad and having product made abroad because it's cheaper, we are going to lose that critical mass in this country and not be able to support things. I think one of the positive things that I do see is that thinking about the environment and carbon footprint, our products are quite heavy and big and obviously thinking about local markets, but not just the UK market, the European market. If actually we can focus people's attention to not give everything to China and to sort of the Far Eastern countries, then we have actually got a chance of bringing back some of the manufacturing to the Western world and being able to supply product within these sort of local markets quite well, because also we'll be scored on carbon footprint as well as the price. So, but the world hasn't quite made it to that, or we've not evolved enough to that point either to be able to quantify it, but there does need to be a different type of scoring based on the balance between price and carbon footprint and sort of what in my mind is like the greater good factor. So yeah, I think there is a bright, a sustainable future for the for what's left, but there seems to be quite a lot of consolidation and things going on at the moment. So I'm just not sure where it's all going to end up. But I do feel like if we do the right thing and we always stay ahead of our game, then there'll always be a place for us.
It's amazing, isn't it, how in such a short period of time, say 30 years, things can change so drastically. I've been in the stainless steel industry for 34 years. And when I joined, the Far East did not make stainless steel at all. They were one of the major importers of European made stainless steel. And now they're one of the biggest exporters. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean, each pack of stainless steel is the same. The European stainless steel mills are all pushing really, really hard on additional recycling. All European stainless steel has, I think it's a minimum of about 85% recycled content.
Mm-hmm.
There are some now that have much greener credentials compared to, even if that same stainless steel was made in just as a recycled environmentally way in China
Mm-hmm.
or Taiwan, for it to then come to the UK, it's travelling a lot further than
Yes.
coming across from Sweden or Belgium. So you've still got that CO2 imprint.
Yeah.
And the cost, when my customers are comparing the price per ton between the two, it is huge. It is really, really, really a massive factor when you're talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the end users that they're now going into, a lot of them do specify European made stainless steel.
That's
So
excellent. Yeah, that's what we need to change.
hopefully,
Mm.
if that continues, building on your sustainable future view of manufacturing and more onshoring, then the future will not only be bright, it will continue to grow, and then we can all continue to invest, and then we can all continue to grow. And it makes it easier for us to take the graduate placements on and put those training courses in as SMEs, because of course that's difficult.
There is one thing I'm a little bit concerned about in the sense of like let's say we've got an old process in the UK that we make something in particular that's specialist and niche. Companies, in order to make themselves appear more environmentally friendly, are disposing of these processes completely, but they're still buying and sourcing that product that goes through that exact same process just from somebody somewhere else in the world, and it's someone else's problem, or they've sold that company to a Brazilian company, say, and it's not their problem because it's not on their books. So they're a green company, but they're still using that dirty process. And actually, what needs to happen is that that company revolutionizes that process and remains the world leader in that process. But because that material still exists and it's still required, so why are we giving away our expertise and our knowledge of that? Why are we not just evolving it and transforming it? Because that is what is going to keep us ahead of the game. But it seems to be that it goes into the too hard to do box, and then someone just goes, get rid of the too hard to do boxes, and we'll just keep the nice, pretty, easy boxes. But in the long term, China's going to be able to do all the easy boxes too. So our our niche is the stuff that's hard to do, not the easy stuff. And I think we're losing our way a little bit with doing things like that.
Yeah, it's like the current sort of sound bites about, the UK becoming world class for advanced manufacturing, but you need the nuts and bolts basic manufacturing first being done well, before you can get to the advanced manufacturing, because otherwise you're going to be sourcing, the nuts and bolts and everything else that you need, not from Sheffield, Rotherham or Smethwick or Dorset. You're going to be getting them from Taiwan or South Korea or Brazil. And that just...
I'm paying £300 for the shipment just to get the parcel here. Yeah.
So
it's like, for
we
20
need
quid bag of bolts.
Yeah, we need the basic stuff being done here. So we can continue to grow advanced manufacturing, because the one comes from the other one. And
this is what we're struggling to get the politicians to understand, because I've had various conversations with people in different organisations who they're only interested, all of them, all parties, they're only interested if it's got wings or wheels. That's the term. Wings or wheels, or we're not interested. Get out the room. And it's like, we're not going to have any wings or wheels if you don't have the basics, right down from the stuff that we drag out of the ground and convert. So wake up, because your advanced manufacturing's gone if you can't make anything below it sustainably.
So I actually had a conversation with government a few months ago with one of my other hats on. And I had a slight tantrum, which happens every now and again. And it was a few months ago. So the strikes were sort of really, the train drivers were striking, the NHS was striking, so many people were striking. And I just went, look, if we as a metals industry, encompassing all of it, go on strike, nothing will happen. Nothing will get made. You won't be able to eat. You won't be able to drink. You won't be able to take a paracetamol. You will not be able to do a thing. You need to listen to us. I mean, of course they didn't, but, I felt better for saying it.
Good. Get it off. You need to say these things.
And I've got one or two politicians at the moment who are actively engaging on LinkedIn, sending messages, listening. They're not doing anything, but, and we don't want to be hitting people with a big stick. We want to sit down, have a conversation, explain the reasons, which are all relevant, but they're not listening.
No.
Because
they're all too worried about the next election and whether or not they're going to have a place or not. And that's actually, and I've been to the House of Lords a couple of times for like cross-party talks, and one of the conversations I had with an MP was, maybe actually, rather than it being just the Labour Party agenda or the Conservative Party agenda, there needs to be some common goals amongst all the parties, because people are sick of your inter-party politics, and we want to actually, everybody wants the NHS to succeed. Everybody wants manufacturing and industry to be sustainable. Nobody wants to see the car plants closing down and all these things. So let's have a strategy that is a cross-party strategy for like three major things: NHS, industry, education. and actually all of you all work to a common goal, but you can work in different ways to get to that goal, but that the goal is still the same. And they need to and it's just they're just not, they are
No.
so not interested
Well, the
in
latest
that.
business council they've put together to represent all businesses in the UK doesn't have anyone from an SME background.
I've raised this. I've raised this already. I actually collared Rachel Reeve in a corridor, the Shadow
Yeah.
Chancellor, and said exactly that. And I said, "Would you like to put me on it?" And she sort of said, "Oh, well, I'll connect you." And it's like, well, yes, but you do need to actually do it. So because there isn't these they're not, I was looking at the last one that they had, and there was only Emma Bridgewater on there, who was actually a manufacturer. So
Didn't they go
it,
bust?
no, she's the ceramics.
Oh, the
She does
ceramic
like the
people. Yeah,
teapots
yeah,
and
yeah, 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 yeah.
beautiful, beautiful ceramic,
Mm.
beautiful
Yes.
products. But yeah, she was like the only one, and it's like you're not representing
No,
people properly.
no,
So you're not going to get the proper outcomes, are you, if you don't get the mix
you're
of
not.
people correctly?
You're not.
So
And talking about representing SMEs, congratulations on being named as one of the manufacturer top 100s.
thank you.
Were you there at the event?
Yes, I went to the event.
Yeah.
It was a really good event actually, and quite delivered quite swiftly and whatnot, very efficient. But yeah, it was fantastic, and what what an honour to be part of that, and to be around other amazing people, and be in it. So it was a really humbling experience.
The room was absolutely packed. It was so busy. I'd spent the day at the NEC and then went to the event afterwards.
Mhm.
Um, and it was fabulous. It was so great to see people like Andrea Wilson and um, Emma Hockley and so many others there. It was a really, really good event. I still need to do my video. I've not done my video yet. Oops.
Oh, I've got I've got a story about mine. I totally forgot that it was the video day when I was supposed to do it, and I'd had a bad hair day and everything else. So it was just I walked in and the film crew were there, and I was thinking, oh gosh, what have I done here? So mine's awful. So don't watch mine.
I can beat that. I've got one on our YouTube channel, and it was just before the UK Metals Expo last year, and I was sorting out all the boxes of all the giveaways and everything else. And the phone rang, and it was Ed from Sky, and he said, "Look, I need to talk to you about this on camera. Are you in?" I went, "Yeah." And he went, "I'll be there in 2 hours." And I was like, "All right." I looked down. I was in a sweatshirt and jeans and no makeup. So I'm walking through the factory, yeah, in my what I'd normally wear sort of like a weekend when I'm running errands. So there you go. And went out up Sky News at 10 or whatever it is.
Need to have a hair and makeup on demand, I think. You know,
Normally, if I've got a big um event or filming or anything, I've got a makeup artist who comes in. I've
that's
got my own
good.
photographer and she's brilliant. But yeah, 2 hours notice.
That's what I need. I might take a leaf out of your book, Kirsty.
They are really, really, really good. They are really, really good. Um, Before we started recording, we were talking about holidays and things like that, and the work-life balance is really important for everyone. Some people are better at balancing it than others, and everyone's looks different.
Hmm.
How does it work for you to balance all your different roles, and how do you sort of switch off, relax, or don't you?
Uh, I think I go through phases. I like have flurries, and then I'll sort of weekends are sacred. So that was one thing that I learned early doors, was that I had to not even mention work at the weekend, because once it started taking up those 2 days, it was quite poisonous in the way that it affects you. So it so I'll have like a sort of, my weekends are sacred, and then I'll have a bit of a flurry. So some weeks I'll work every night till midnight as well, and sort of get through some stuff. This week is one of those weeks, and then other weeks I'll do nice things for myself, and like go for a walk in the village, or do some bits and bobs, and I can't moan. We do get some good holidays. With my husband and I bought a place abroad in the last year, so we've been trying to go there, and we're sort of hybrid working from there. So we sort of work for half the day, or I work for half the day, he works all day. I work for half the day, and then I've got the afternoon with the kids by the pool, and that works quite well because it keeps on top of things. But yeah, that's the good side of being in charge, that you can actually do things like that, which is great. So I'm getting there. It's just anything with manufacturing, though, if there's a problem, it's just got to be dealt with, and it's a roller coaster, continuous roller coaster of good and bad.
It is, and I swear that there is a gremlin in a closet somewhere, and as soon as I decide to have a day off, something goes wrong.
Yeah, my
Um,
factory's full of gremlins.
it's when I come in and I go, "Have we solved that?" And they'll go, "No, because we told you about it at 4:30, and it's now 6:30 the next morning." And I was going, "Okay, when are we going to solve that then?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "The pixies didn't come out and fix it overnight." And I'm
No.
like, "Okay, but why didn't we stop and fix it?"
Yeah.
It's
That's
not
too
that.
logical. Too
Yeah,
logical.
it's
Stop being silly now.
yes, I know. It is. It's yeah. I find manufacturing as a whole that when it's good, it's very, very good, and you're flying, and
Mm.
it's so great. And then, the other shoe drops, as my grandmother would say, or
And you're
you walk
waiting
round a
for it,
corner
aren't
and
you? When is it going to go
yeah,
wrong?
yeah.
Yeah.
You just go, it's going too well. What's going to go wrong?
Hmm.
So looking forward to the next generation of people coming into the refractories, what advice would you give, particularly a young woman coming into the industry? Um, is it for her? How can she make it for her?
Well, my father said to me, don't do it. Stay away from the company. Do not, you don't want this career. This is not for you. Go and get yourself a nice career where you've got this balance, and you can have a nice job where when you have children, you get maternity pay and all of these lovely, lovely things. That's what he sort of wanted. And this, obviously, I ended up in here. He didn't know that I was going to end up doing this. So this, it would have been nice for him to have seen that. But a young woman coming into the refractory industry, well, I'll tell you what, you'll be one of a kind, and a rare entity. So if you want to do something to stand out, and have a really varied and interesting scientific role that's really, really important, and because there won't be because there isn't any or many of you, many or any, then you're kind of paving your own way. So it's a really unique opportunity. And I'd like to see more of them really understand that. We took on an apprentice here 2 years ago. He's got another year left to go as a lab technician, and he's doing his degree. And it would be nice to do another apprenticeship and another apprenticeship after that. And it'll be really interesting to see what he does, whether um, we want to sort of grow him within the business, or over time he may decide that he wants to go to another company in the UK, or wherever. But we're sort of giving back, he'll be the youngest in the industry as it currently stands in the UK.
Wow.
So he's quite a special person, and it's really good to be able to give young people that opportunity, and I really want to do more of it. But we need them to want to do it, and it's not for everybody. It is dirty. It is hard work. It's not glamorous, but there are elements of it that um, are really special, and I would urge people to take a look and to have a go, because there's nothing else like it. And it is, once you're kind of in refractories, you do get a little bit hooked. So yeah, get involved and see how you like it.
So your current apprentice is the future face of refractories going
Yes.
forward.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. And finally, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Um, Probably to trust myself more, to listen to what my instincts are telling me, and to go with it. Uh, Quite in the past, what I used to do was I listen. Obviously, you should listen to people and you should take on board their points, but there's a difference between listening to people and um, diluting the direction that you're going to take because you've allowed them to pressure you into a decision that you don't feel comfortable with. And I think that's how I've evolved. That I'll listen to people and I'll take on the information, and in my heart then tells me what the direction is that we need to follow, but don't necessarily allow yourself to be swayed away from what your core is telling you to do. Because quite often, every time I've done that, it seems to be something seems to go wrong, and it doesn't tend to be the right decision. So, and that's not to say that my decision would have been right, but then to me, if you know what they say, live by your sword, die by your sword. It's my sword. But then if you've allowed someone to dilute your opinion, then you can get a little bit of resentment there for the fact that they've tainted the direction you were going to go as well. So trusting your instincts, I think, um, and having that confidence in yourself to say, actually, no, we're still going to do it this way, uh, was probably a big step change for how
I,
I approach things.
yeah, I think you're right. And I think a lot of the decisions that we're making, you've got the gut instinct, and it's not so much just a guess, is that you've subconsciously processed A through to Z anyway, and come out with a decision you want to make because you've got the experience, um, and you don't need to show you're working out, so to speak.
Mm,
Um, and as much as, we value the input, the discussion, the ideas, and the advice of everybody around us, whether within the company or external advisors or other stakeholders, it can only ever be one person's decision.
mm,
And a lot of those decisions you can listen and understand, but you can't rule by committee.
mm,
As you say, it has to be your sword that you pick up. And I think it's always great to get, all that feedback, but
mm,
it has to come down to you. You're the person that, if you're going to go out and buy a load of new plants and you need to go and ask the bank for a loan, they're going to say, please sign here as a
yeah,
personal guarantor. Um, you know, no other person in your company or other stakeholders have to do that. So if you've got to put your money where your mouth is, it needs to be a decision you're 100% comfortable with,
yes, yeah,
because it's down to you.
yeah,
So I think that's really important, and I think everybody, I've gone through the same over the years, um, and there does come a point where you go, that's really interesting, but
yeah,
and it's not that you're not giving due consideration; it's that there are other things that you've already considered that you've not shown in your working out because you don't need
yeah.
to go into everything.
They've not
Yeah.
seen the full picture. But I think it's important to surround yourself with people with the same levels of integrity and morals, because actually a lot of things come back to that. And
Yes.
but at the same time, you need different perspectives and you need different personalities, because they have a different take on a situation to what you do. I don't know. I can be uh, quite, my brain kind of flits off in different directions. We talk about one thing and then I'm like, bing, I've got a different idea. And then I'm a terrible person for kind of steering a meeting off track when I'm supposed to be the one that's keeping it, in line. I need someone to take control of me, honestly, dreadful. But, it's, we all, but then, you have somebody else who likes to complete and finish a task and really see things through, or you've kind of then got someone that's a bit more opportunist. And, yeah, you need that dynamic to kind of navigate your way through a situation to get the absolute best possible result, and or even to sort of salvage a situation as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you need, as you know, talking about your future face of refractories with your apprentice, you need fresh eyes coming in,
Mm,
which is obviously what you did when you came in to take over the running of the business. It's great to have team members who've been here for 30, 40, 20 years, but they do it that way because they've always done it that way.
mm,
And not resistant because they don't want to, but they'll naturally be resistant. They might start off doing it, changing it slightly because someone said, why don't you do that? Then they'll go home, have a weekend, come back in on the Monday and go straight back to what they've been doing for 20 years. So
no,
it's,
no,
and that's not them being awkward. That's just human
no.
nature.
Yes,
So having, fresh eyes come in always helps as well. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Katie. It's been an absolute pleasure
no
to
problem.
speak to
Pleasure
you.
to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I look forward to haranguing a variety of politicians with you over the next few months.
Fabulous, fabulous. That would be great. Yeah, let's give them a hard time. Let's just bin the lot of them and start a new party. That's what I say.
I do consider that every now and again. And then I go, no, I have too many jobs.
Same. That's me. Yeah. I think I even came up with a name for it. I can't remember what I was going to call it, but I even
Oh.
got to the point of naming my party. So,
Yeah, I once scouted a shop on our village high street to see if it would make a good headquarters, but
there you go. Two peas in a pod,
I
Kirsty.
know.
That's it. That's it.
Oh gosh, heaven help them all. Thank you
Oh,
so much, Katie.
no problem. Thank you very much. See you again soon.